Well, because a credit downgrade is unprecedented, no one knows just how much it will affect your and the government's bottom line. But we do know it carries with it some serious consequences. First, the interest rates the government pays on that $14 trillion national debt will go up, raising our government's annual interest costs up to $75 billion a year, according to some estimates. And that means higher borrowing costs for all of us. Most consumer and business credit lines, things like mortgages and student loans and credit cards, should see rates go up immediately. And listen to this, 0.5% increase in mortgage rates could increase the total cost of the average traditional mortgage by $19,000. Now, it's feared any interest increases will slow the economy and cause layoffs. That 0.5% rise in interest rates could, by some estimates, eliminate hundreds of thousands of jobs. And for more on this, let's turn to Wall Street Journal's chief economics correspondent, John Hilsenrath, who joins us from Richmond, Virginia. Good morning to you, John. A huge blow. But I have to ask you, the U.S. government has been running deficits for years. Why did S&P choose this week to downgrade our credit?
Well, I mean, it was largely a political consideration. You know, this happened to be the week after the debt limit debate was resolved. And, you know, the message that they're sending was that Washington did not take big enough steps to fix our long-term deficit problems. You know, they didn't address entitlements. They didn't address tax reform. Those are the big causes. Particularly entitlements is the big cause of budget deficits. And those hard choices still have to be made.
So we hear that this is going to have an impact on consumers and small businesses, virtually everyone in the country. But how big of an impact will it have, specifically given that the country is so strapped right now for cash as it is?
Well, you know, I think we need to be cautious about making judgments about how big an impact it's going to have right away. You know, it's a downgrade certainly puts upward pressure on interest rates, but there are a lot of other things right now that are putting downward pressure on interest rates. When the economy is growing very slowly, when people have uncertainty about stock prices, about where the stock market is going, you know, those things tend to hold interest rates down. And it's also the case that some of the big buyers of America's government debt, like the Chinese and foreign central banks, are still, when we wake up on Monday, going to be big buyers of U.S. government debt. I think we might not see a big impact on interest rates on Monday, but of course there's so much uncertainty out there, and that it's hard to make big predictions.
That's right. And
like
John, whether or not it has a huge impact on consumers, this has a huge impact politically. In fact, S&P basically highlighted this was more about a political problem. I want to quote to you something from their statement. They said, "We are pessimistic about the capacity of Congress and the administration to be able to leverage their agreement this week into a broader fiscal consolidation plan that stabilizes the government's debt dynamics anytime soon." Of course, this is all wonk talk for the fact that government is just not getting along and making any progress right now. Now, do you think it will bring both sides together to actually try to attack this deficit once and for all, or will this lead to more polarization and finger pointing?
Well, you know, so I'm going to give you an optimistic point of view on this. The fact of the matter is, you know, as ugly as this debate really was in Washington about the debt limit, they did make a little bit of progress on restraining discretionary spending. As I said, they haven't done anything on entitlements, but those are big, hard decisions that have to be made. I think there are a number of tripwires that are in place right now that are going to force America, not just our politicians, but American voters too, to deal with entitlements and the deficit. I think it's going to get under control at some point in the next 18 months.
We shall see, John. Of course, all eyes are going to be on the stock market come Monday morning. Dan, no surprise that S&P chose Friday night when the markets are closed, leading up to a weekend, to come out with that downgrade.
Bianna, thank you. Good to hear an optimistic view from Mr. Hilsenrath as well.